So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to day 3 of this Arctic Colors Coastal Arctic Biogeochemical Data Synthesis Community meeting. We'd like to thank the Ocean Carbon Biogeochemistry Program Office, especially Heather and May for helping us coordinate and organize this virtual meeting, as well as supporting this data synthesis activity. And also NASA Ocean Biology and Biochemistry Program, Laura Lorenzoni, program scientist for supporting this data synthesis activity as well. Okay. There we go. So yeah, hopefully you may have joined us on day 1 and day 2, where we talked about focused our discussions on field measurements, what data sets exist in the coastal Arctic. Day 2 focused on modeling activities. And day 3, we're focusing on remote sensing, though I don't expect us to go in depth on remote sensing specific issues. It's mostly we intend to address remote sensing in relation to this field measurement data synthesis activity. So this is I'll go through this again later, but just to point out that I'm going to try to give you an introduction, provide some context to the Arctic Colors timeline going forward, as well as for this data synthesis activity. And then we have a series of speakers, exciting topics today, and I'll go into a little more detail later. Okay, so Arctic Colors, what comes next? I know that that's come up during this meeting and you know, in other venues when we've been able to gather and discuss. But just to be clear, Arctic Colors is the next NASA Ocean Biology and Biogeochemistry Program major field campaign. Currently, NASA OBB is supporting the exports field campaign that you may have heard about, oceanographic field campaign looking at carbon fluxes and in topics such as the biological pump in major ocean basins. They just completed their second field cruise this past spring, and so they are working on their data analysis, and will be and then the exports team will be proceeding to a data synthesis activity or a data model remote sensing synthesis activity in the coming years to come. So when that concludes, Arctic Colors is next in line in the NASA OBB planning for a large field campaign. Just to remind you all that our goal is to improve our understanding of and prediction of rapidly changing coastal Arctic. You've seen this graphic earlier this week. It's obviously in the science plan as well, but our aim is to integrate field observations, modeling, and remote sensing. Truly integrate. I think because the fact that this is largely coastal, we have access to airborne remote sensing. We obviously have satellites because they're in orbit, and also an extensive amount of field activities encompassing small boats, larger vessels, potentially larger vessels, as well as autonomous systems, gliders, moorings, various other autonomous systems. Just to point out that the science plan is available online. It was completed in 2018. It details the science questions and the knowledge gaps that were known at the time and when it was completed. It addresses how we would, it describes how we could address the science questions that were posed, involving obviously field observations, integrating those with models, bringing in remote sensing as well for the spatial and temporal context that's not possible with field observations. But also there's areas that remote sensing cannot help us, for example, seeing under ice plumes. So the field measurements are critical, and obviously the models, you know, fill in additional gaps, both in terms of hindcasting and in forecasting, as well as time and space, the four-dimensional time and space. Okay, so just to give you a notional timeline, Remind you of our study region being this pink shaded region along the coast here, Beaufort, Chukchi, and Bering. Generally from the lower portions of the rivers, river mouths, and both large and small rivers, and extending into the lagoons, erosional bluffs, and out into the continental shelf waters of these seas. Okay, so right now we are in the pre-Arctic colors phase. We're conducting a data synthesis activity. The objectives are to identify data sets from past and present programs that are relevant to Arctic colors. This particular activity that we're focusing on today advances this task, but it will go beyond the duration of this OCB, OBB supported synthesis activity. We expect NASA to establish an implementation team to develop an implementation plan for Arctic colors. We expect this to include participants, scientific members from the U.S. And very likely Canadian, international, and other international partners. We do expect that we will be engaging members of the local communities within the Canadian and U.S. Coastal regions to be part of this implementation team for advising and providing local knowledge. In the next in a few years from now, we expect NASA to solicit for actual research studies for fieldwork, modeling, and remote sensing. And we also hope that there will be willing partners that will solicit complementary investigations, potentially NSF, BOEM, NOAA, among other entities, as well as Canadian and other potential international partners. Just to point out regarding the partners outside of NASA, this will be something that the NASA program manager like Laura Lorenzoni would be heading up. It wouldn't be something that I or any of the co-leads on this activity would be engaging in, because it's beyond our purview. The actual field campaign modeling remote sensing activities would begin hopefully in the 2025 timeframe. Again, this is notional. And then that after that period of field modeling and remote sensing, we expect there to be a data synthesis activity. So this is a very long-term activity. You know, if we start the clock about now, it's basically a 12-year activity overall, with formal funding in terms of the program to be roughly on the order of 8 years. That's what we recommended to NASA. You saw a version of this slide with Ann Kellerman's presentation on Monday. This is just a little bit more comprehensive to put things into context. So we're basically here now with this OCB, OBB data synthesis activity. Again, an implementation team should be established within the coming 6 to 12 months to develop that. But in that interim, we expect there to be additional this phase 1 Arctic colors activity, which is to expand data repositories, remote sensing data sets, and also modeling development analysis. I would want to point out that NASA has been supporting a number of projects that fall under pre-Arctic colors, under pre-Arctic colors, and then just the schedule, the notional schedule for field work and other research activities. Okay. So meeting goals, as we've discussed in the previous 2 days, identify and characterize existing field data sets, modeling activities, and remote sensing capabilities within the coastal Arctic region. The emphasis of this particular data synthesis activity is on carbon stocks and fluxes, along with optical proxies, but also we are interested in related biogeochemical variables such as nutrients and primary production. We would very much like to, data sets to be contributed by November 30th. Let me skip over this for now. I think there we go. So the notional timeline of the activities, for the data synthesis that we're discussing today. To review and format contribute data sets from now. Actually, this began in the summer timeframe in terms of mining of available data sets. And continue probably for the next few months. Organizing data files to consisting formats and units, quality control. These data files will be archived into this NASA system called ADAPT. This is similar to what Above is using, and Peter Griffith, I believe, will talk about that later today, about the system that Above has been using. The intent is that, well, the databases or data archive that is being created from this activity will be public. Anyone should have, all should have access to it. So that's an important aspect. We also expect that there will be some GIS capability for searching and for visualizing the locations of these data sets to facilitate access. And there'll also be a synthesis of the data sets, including data analysis and visualization, and a manuscript, or perhaps one or more manuscripts to come out of this activity. And that will be spring to summer for that activity. Okay. And so for further information, please reach out to any of us. Also very important for Arctic Colors. Obviously, the funding has not been identified because this is several years out into the future, but it would help Laura Lorenzoni immensely if you reach out to her and express interest in Arctic Colors. This is how she can gauge the interest in this. And share that with her managers, including Jack Kay, who's her immediate supervisor, as head of the research and analysis and earth science division at NASA headquarters. So reaching out to Laura specifically, but also feel free to reach out to Jack Kay if that also would be helpful. And so our schedule today. We've got Hajo Eichen from University of Alaska Fairbanks discussing the International Arctic Research Center data sets. To kind of bridge the second day to this third day, Charles Miller and Peter Griffith will be talking about the Above program, and both in general terms, but also specifically about the airborne remote sensing data sets that Above has collected within the Arctic Colors domain, study domain. Jim Churnside will be presenting some exciting results based on their oceanographic LiDAR in the coastal Arctic. And Atsushi Matsuoka is pulling double duty for us this week, providing a second presentation addressing Arctic satellite remote sensing challenges and gaps. This will be followed by Q&A for all speakers, and we'll have some breakout groups with a revised set of questions. So they'll be they're generally different than what we've discussed earlier in this week. But the aim is not necessarily to just focus on remote sensing, but remote sensing in the context of the other topics. We'll also come back for a discussion as a whole group, and then at the end of the day, we'll have a wrap up and adjourn the meeting. Okay, and so okay, we are ready for the next person.